You used us. You know you did. I wish just never to cross paths with you again.
It's so confusing.
We ended the relationship with Terry the documentarian on a very bad note.
Wow. Okay, so they didn't need any type of let us sign off on this before you air it, privileges or anything like that.
No, they didn't ask for that.
They didn't ask for that?
Was Karen paid at all for her participation in this?
No, not at all. We didn't even buy them dinner. Feel kind of bad about that, but no.
I believe I was misled and taken advantage of.
Terry couldn't stand her lawyers, but in particular, David Yannetti.
Well?
She was 100% in the camp of Karen is guilty.
I don't think she's going to be happy with what she said to you. Me personally, I wouldn't have said all that.
Smart move by Terry, and now we see how clever she was. She was actually excluding this chooch's theories about how Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe, despite all the evidence to the contrary. The docuseries A Body in the Snow followed Karen Reed before, during, and after trial number 1. Once filming concluded and it actually aired, there was a major dispute between Karen Reed and the producers. Let's find out why.
Terry Dunmure, she is one of the co-owners and original founders of Unsolved Mysteries.
The Terry he's referring to probably gave you nightmares just like me for over 20 years producing the show Unsolved Mysteries.
In 1977, outside Tucson, Arizona, a businessman was found.
That opening and the sound of his voice still gives me anxiety.
Shot in the back of the head.
And she had never done an independent project before. So it was Jackson who had reached out to her. They selected her. And when they contacted her, they said, we're going to give you unprecedented access to a murder defendant leading up to the trial and then during the trial. So that's why she took that.
So there's an attorney who was representing Karen and Alan Jackson.
That's Terry, and she's describing exactly how she got involved with filming Karen Reed in the first place.
Who knew me, had been contacted by a lot of different producers. So I got a text from him, actually. He goes, I have a case for you. I have a story for you. All these producers are asking me about it. He sent me a document about it. And then I did some research and I was like, this is an amazing case. You don't say no. To that kind of access and to that incredible story.
It was Karen and her attorney, Alan Jackson, who brought us in. They actually invited us to do this film about the pretrial and the trial. This project came to us about 3 weeks before pretrial. They came to me and they said they wanted to do what we call a follow doc. They wanted us to follow them. And I said, really? We're really going to get this access and that access? Can we be in the hotel room? Can we be in the car? Can we be in the war room? And they said yes. So we got our crew together and we went and we started filming 3 weeks later. The access was real.
It certainly was, and that's what makes this docuseries so compelling. They were in the war room. They were behind the scenes. They were in the SUV. They were in the showers. They were filming everywhere, getting us exclusive access that we never see during a murder trial.
Now, they didn't tell me that either back during that first one, so I didn't know that she had been hired by Karen.
Was Karen paid at all for her participation in this?
No, not at all. We didn't even buy them dinner. Feel kind of bad about that, but no. No, maybe a coffee or something. But
I've been involved with the production of many documentaries over my career, both starring in them and actually doing the negotiations on behalf of talent. Generally speaking, the producers of a documentary inform you that it's not customary to pay talent because then it would take away from the authenticity of the actual film. In reality, sometimes they do get paid, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they make a deal where, in consideration for being filmed, the talent would have final say in what actually is produced. Many producers don't want that, but you can negotiate for that before you actually start filming.
No, they weren't paid.
That is so amazing to hear. That is amazing to hear.
We were not paid. I was not paid. No member of my team was paid anything from the documentary. It was very legally involved. I believe I was misled and taken advantage of.
That's a bold claim by Karen, considering she had about 17 attorneys representing her at the time. Before filming starts, obviously everything's going to be reduced to a contract. In that contract, if there was an agreement for Karen or anyone else to be compensated, it would be in the actual terms of the agreement.
She, the documentarian, went out of her way to excise us from enjoying not one dime of the proceeds. I have made nothing on the documentary. In fact, I lost trying to fight for a piece of the proceeds from the.
It sounds like at some point Karen wanted to get paid for being filmed. However, if the original agreement set forth that she wasn't to get compensated, she doesn't have much of a legal grounds to actually contest it. It also sounds like she hired an attorney, utilizing money to pay that attorney in order to try and get some money for the documentary, which clearly was not successful.
Documentary. I went into the documentary thinking that there was this Son of Sam law in Massachusetts, which prevents defendants from profiting. You can't commit a crime and then write a book from prison and send your kids to college on the back of this crime. There is no Son of Sam law in Massachusetts, which we found out in the middle of making this deal with the documentaries.
Whenever you reduce your agreement to writing a contract, all the terms in the contract will be binding, and nothing before or generally after will have any effect on the terms. Karen and her team should have done this legal research before they actually assigned the agreement. But then you ask, why did she actually do it? She had a huge benefit. She wanted to testify. She wanted to tell her story without risking going on the stand and being cross-examined and potentially losing the entire case, which I totally understand. But for her to argue that she didn't know the law before signing the contract is a little bit suspect.
Which was great. So I can get paid at any point in this legal process, even if I were convicted.
Wow. Okay. So they didn't need any type of let us sign off on this before you air it, privileges or anything like that.
No, they didn't ask for that.
They didn't ask for that? Wow. I'm shocked.
One major issue for negotiating a contract for a documentary is the ability to have final say in what is actually publicized. That means that Karen could have demanded that no final product is actually published until she okays it. It appears Karen wanted this to be a one-sided documentary, and I get that. I understand what she was going through. However, when you reduce this agreement to writing, we have to abide by the terms of it. It sounds like she had legal counsel before actually executing this contract, but it doesn't appear that they actually put in this term for which Karen would have control over that final docuseries product.
Okay, that's interesting. So when this trial ended in a hung jury, nobody said to you anything like, hey, maybe can you take this out, or can you maybe not include when we said that, or no one said that?
No, during the course of the filming, they would say something and they'd say, Terry, don't use that. And I told them from the very beginning, could call me 2 weeks later and say, I was thinking, don't use that. I would respect that decision. So there were times, in fact, even when they were driving to or from the courthouse, they'd be talking about what happened. I'd be following in the van, listening to the conversation because there wasn't enough room in the car. They'd be talking, they go, Terry, don't use that. They would be talking into the mic so that, because they knew I was listening to everything they were saying.
One of the major ethical concerns is when you're speaking with a client, generally the communication is protected by the attorney-client privilege, and that is very important. However, when you allow third parties to actually listen in and participate, those communications may be deemed non-confidential, meaning someone could potentially have Terry or anyone else listening testify as to exactly what was being said between Karen and her attorney. So you have to be very careful when you do this.
Respected that. If there's something that they didn't want us to use, we didn't use it. And there were times we didn't have full access. There were times when they said, you know what, we really need the room here. And so we would just quietly leave until they were ready for us to come back.
Did you reach out to the family? I'm sure they didn't want to talk.
They had an exclusive deal with a different production company as well.
Terry was asked about speaking with the O'Keeffes, and apparently they had their own agent and their own production company, so they couldn't actually speak with Terry directly.
And the family did.
I had an idea where this documentary was going before it came out. I had former students from Bentley. I had former colleagues, friends that traveled on their dime to interview for this documentary. These are people who knew me in all sorts of facets of life. I was then told those interviews didn't make it in.
They didn't make it in, yeah.
But John's sister-in-law, to the best of my knowledge and to everyone's knowledge, I would guess, knows they didn't have the tightest relationship. There's been two friends of his I have never met. I was with John
They're always after me, Lucky Charms.
nearly every day for 2 years. I had dated him 20 years before that. And there's some guy and an old girlfriend who I never met.
It sounds like Karen's referring to that leprechaun who claims to be John's best friend and some other family member. However, when you're doing a documentary, you want to have a good balance. It seems like Terry did that. I loved it. I'm not sure what Karen is complaining about here, ultimately because she didn't have final say and what was going to be published, she really doesn't have much grounds to actually contest it.
This is the closest you could find to John. People who never saw John and me interact.
I loved interviewing John's friends. They're crying, I'm crying. It was so emotional. They care so much about him. They're just wonderful, salt of the earth, really cared about this guy. And John, that's one of the things we tried to do in the documentary. So it's about the trial and it's about the case. And it's easy for John, the victim here, to get lost in all of that. And we really tried throughout each of the episodes to have a piece about John, have his friends talk about him or their theory about what happened. So that was very conscious on our part. And I still feel like I wish we could have included more because their interviews were incredible.
And yet I gave you friends, I gave you people from my parish, students, colleagues, and none of it made it in.
It's pretty obvious why Karen's upset. And it seems like Terry was authentic in trying to give both sides and also trying to give tribute to John in each episode.
There's so much that didn't get included in the documentary.
You can't just tell the story of the defense without telling the story of the prosecution. We really had to take out, there's so much content. This is such a complicated case. We have over 250 hours of footage that we shot in the war room, in their hotel room, in the car. So we had to sift through that and make the most balanced presentation we could of what the prosecution's main points were and what the defense's main points were.
Terry's a professional, and she was determined that that documentary was going to be fair and balanced.
He's 100% right, and you could see it. Besides scaring the shit out of me with that show, Unsolved Mysteries, you can clearly hear in Terry's voice that she tried to remain neutral and tried to present both sides, which made it such a compelling documentary.
So she wasn't going to let her viewpoint impact how she did the film. And most of the things that made Karen look bad, that was just Karen making herself look bad. So for instance, they could have put more of me in there debunking the conspiracy theory. They didn't. Instead, there was a whole bunch of Sue O'Connell.
Smart move by Terry, and now we see how clever she was. She was actually excluding this Chooch's theories about how Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe with his SUV, despite all the evidence to the contrary.
Do you know if she's happy with how it turned out?
I've heard she hasn't watched it.
Okay.
I was told she didn't want to watch it because she didn't want to get distracted by it. I don't know. That was a while ago. I don't know if she's watched it since.
Has Karen and her team, have they seen this documentary ahead of the release on March 17th?
No, they have not seen the documentary at all. Very, very early on, we showed them just a very rough clip of about 5 minutes of footage that we had cut together just so they could see what they looked like on camera. But other than that, they have not screened the series.
When the documentary came out, I made a concerted effort. I will not watch that. What is the point to get upset? Because I know what didn't make it in. And people come up to me all the time that I saw the documentary. It was, wow, what a story it told. And I can't believe what you went through. My family and friends that saw it, no one's raved about it because they don't feel it portrayed me. I'm not surprised I was cast in a light that is not realistic.
This documentary was brilliant. It doesn't portray Karen in a negative light. And more importantly, it gives that exclusive access. Alan Jackson preparing his closing, David Yanetti's pre-shower rituals, Karen Reed in the war room, answering questions, making decisions. This was the access we needed. This was the access provided and displayed beautifully by Terry. I'm not sure if Karen actually is making her decision based upon what she thinks was actually shown or because she didn't get as much of her story in as she wanted.
It's been very quiet since the trailer came out. Karen and her team have not seen this film. They don't know what's coming, so they probably don't know if they should support it or not support it.
I did not see the documentary. I watched the end of the final episode. I don't know if there are 4 or 5. Several people told me there was a nice moment with David and me at the end of the last episode. So I did watch that and I liked it. Dave and I said goodbye at the hotel, and then the documentary ended with me in my basement at the house I no longer live in with all the legal boxes because the documentary ended at the mistrial. The fight will continue.
Karen seems to know a lot about the documentary she didn't see, and she's 100% correct. It was good, and the ending was great as well.
She was trying to show, here I am just back, stuck at go again with our paper shredder and our printers. All right, I've seen enough. People close to me who watched the documentary said, based on what I had predicted it would be, it was not that.
I don't think she's going to be happy with what she said to you. It's her choice to talk. Me personally, I wouldn't have said all that, but also you could argue that she's an open book. She says she has nothing to hide. It's so confusing still.
You could tell she really, really wanted to tell her story, and that's what she says at the top of the series. This is
the reason Karen agreed to all this access and to not get paid and to not have final say in what was actually published was because she was so desperate to tell her story. I get that. Sometimes it does backfire. We saw in trial number 2 Hank using various excerpts from the documentaries, which ultimately led to her being convicted of that OUI charge.
my testimony. I know I'm not going to be able to probably go on the stand, but I want the world to know what my side of the story is. And she had done interviews, small interviews here and there, but she hadn't really told the full story.
Imagine this going like, oh, certain moments, I think they are going to really go, this is so callous of Karen. It just seems like very unfeeling at times. And then at times, there's a lot of feeling in there.
I think if you're in the Free Karen Reed camp, the film isn't going to change your mind or make you think any differently about the case. And the same with the other camp. I think if people don't know anything about the case, I hope we've done a clear job of laying it out so that they can experience the back and forth that everybody else has.
I will tell my story with more control. We don't have a book deal. Alan and I will be co-authors on a book. There will be no book written by someone, even with just some creative input by me.
Do you have an opinion on the case?
We really tried to be as balanced as we could. That was our goal. I told Karen and Alan at the top, I said, there's two sides to this case, to this story. We have to tell both sides. The audience isn't going to understand the defense of Karen if they don't understand the prosecution of Karen. We had to do both. We just really tried to keep an open mind. And I've decided that it's up to the jury to decide. It's not my place to decide what Karen is innocent or guilty.
Very nice job of Terry avoiding the question, do you believe Karen Reed is guilty or not? She could have her own opinion, and she obviously does. Everyone has their own opinion. However, she didn't give it here.
We did our job, which was to tell Karen's story. She did. I think she did. Of course, there's plenty of footage that we weren't able to use. The heart of her story is there.
But I would guess she probably felt Karen was innocent. But I spent 3 hours on film debunking the conspiracy theory and proving that it had to be Karen. And of course, that was before I had all the evidence. She continued filming with Karen. And then
I can't believe Terry didn't use the 3 hours of video of this Chooch's theories with regard to the case, which he actually solved without even having all the evidence.
They came back and filmed with me a couple of weeks after the first trial ended. Now it was different. Terry opened up. She no longer believed at all that Karen was innocent. She was 100% in the camp of Karen is guilty. Not only that, she grew to loathe her. But not just her, but the whole crew loathed her and considered her guilty. And they spent hundreds of hours with her. Terry couldn't stand her lawyers, but in particular, David Yannetti.
Well?
And the reason was the way David Yannetti mercilessly broke down Allie McCabe on the stand, abusing that data to make it seem like she was part of some murder cover-up and bringing her to tears.
People showing up at our house, people emailing my school. Just like a lot of harassment.
As Terry said to me, she said, David Yannetti has 3 daughters. They're like similar age. And she says, I can't believe he would do something like that.
At 12:23 and 14 seconds, you completed a 7-mile drive where your top speed was 42 miles an hour. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And that lines up perfectly with picking little Colin up and dropping him off.
And then after arriving home again on January 29th of 2022 at 12:29 and 29 seconds, you completed a 12-mile drive on January 29th of 2022 at 12:31 and 22 seconds. Did you not?
No.
Huh? Between 12:29 and 12:31 a.m., Allie drove 12 miles? If that Life 360 data was accurate, Allie was driving 382 miles per hour.
They had completely switched.
Remember, at the time, people still thought that little Colin Albert and Allie were involved in this big conspiracy to cover up Brian Higgins killing John O'Keefe. You can't fault David Yannetti for doing his best to advocate on behalf of Karen Reed. That's his job. It doesn't matter if he has 3 daughters the same age. Yes, when you look back now, there are a lot of moments that are embarrassing for David Yannetti in that situation. But given the fact that he knew at that time he was doing the best he could, eventually, after trial number 1, they come to realize they have Brian Higgins, the killer, taunting John O'Keefe on video at the waterfall. They didn't recognize that in trial number 1 for whatever reason.
They had completely switched.
We ended the relationship with Terry the documentarian on a very bad note, over money, of course.
There's actually perhaps a lot of people out there that think you are sitting on a beach, you are cashing in on a book deal, a documentary deal. Like, they think that you are good, you're set, you're enjoying your life.
It appears that at some point during the filming, Karen Read wanted to get paid for what she was doing, and apparently had an attorney attempt to do that. It wasn't successful. All that needs to be done before you enter into that contract. All the research, all the negotiation, all those terms need to be in the actual contract. It's hard to come back after and claim we want money when you agreed to do it without being paid.
Announced that we're working with a publisher. This is Luke Janklow, and a producer in Los Angeles. That's Julie Yorn, the movie and TV side of things.
But all is not lost. Karen is working with Luke and Julie, pursuing both a book and movie deal, so don't worry so much about her finances.
The movie and TV side of things. So I've only announced that I have agents and I have these producers helping me to sell this. John O'Keefe entered the garage or the house at 34 Fairview. I find him in a heap, missing his hat.
Ironically, despite complaining about Terry and the docuseries, when she did this interview with Rotten Melon, they used actual content from Terry's docuseries.
Missing his shoe. I don't need your money. You know what you did. You know what we gave you every day. My family, you were in our living quarters, in the SUV with us every day. You know what we gave you, and you know what kind of story you had from us, and you used us. You know you did. I wish just never to cross paths with you again.
Ooh, those sound like fighting words from Karen Read. Catch me outside, Karen Read. She's pissed at Terry. I understand why she's upset, but when she reflects and looks back on how brilliant this docuseries was, she has nothing to worry about. And we just heard she has agents for TV, book, and movie deals. She will be just fine. Don't you worry about Karen. I get it. But ultimately, in the end, it seems like the real disagreement started because both parties were not clearly informed about who would be compensated and who would have the final authority before that final product was published. Either way, no matter what, we will never, ever stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
Get
it on him.
I'm trying, he's too strong.
Hold his arm.
Such a good boy, isn't he? He's a natural on set.